This video is sponsored by Squarespace, the Antoine Dupont of website builders. I don't think any other sport produces as many kinds of world-class athletes as rugby. Where basketball and whatever this sport might be gives you many variants on a few themes, there's no other game where the sport's finest can span from Fumi Tanaka to Uni Antonio. And so the way we discuss the game has to be so much broader. Oz Durant and Shane Williams had equivalent impacts on rugby, but you'd never call Eastern Cape Gandolfini magic or Ammanford's greatest on-grass figure skater destructive. Instead, all-time greats are consistently split up into categories, often summed up in very neat groups and able to be described in 3 words or fewer, instantly placing them in an archetype of players, a lineage, a history. Johnny Wilkinson, hard work, commitment, accuracy, seen since in Dan Bigger and Owen Farrell. Jonah Lomu, outrageous power and pace, seen in everyone from Julian Surveyor to George North. Richie McCaw, leadership, durability, sneaky bastardry, that's one word now. Sam Warburton, David Pocock. And indeed, the game's current best players slot calmly into set, easily describable categories. Antoine Dupont, ridiculous, skillful, alarmingly strong. Emily Scarrett, flawless, calm, intelligent. Michael Hooper, tenacious, tireless, leader. And then we get to Lukhanyo Am, and the only word I can find to really sum him up is class. He's unarguably one of the top 5 players on the planet right now. There's a pretty good argument he might even be number 1, and yet it's so much harder to explain why it might be him than it is the magic cuboid at 9 for France. He doesn't really exist in a lineage of players as Dupont, Scarrett or Hooper does. He's just kinda something new. And so, in order to answer the kind of conundrum once and for all, it's time to really dig in. Just why is Lukhanyo Am so class, and what is his new category of world-class rugby player? When we talk about rugby intelligence, I think we often end up celebrating the players who approach a sport that's ultimately just a homoerotic way to feel like you wrestled a rhino, as though it were a game of chess. But whereas a player like George Ford or Paolo Garbisi clearly thinks a great deal about the game, Lukhanyo Am's approach to rugby intelligence is far more unique. Where any other player as smart as him would look to control the game, Am simply plays it. This try against Australia is as intelligent a moment as you'll ever see on a rugby pitch, but instead of being plotted and planned, it's reactive. After a solid carry by Ori, Pollard spots it on to go wide and Am runs a great line. His aim is to draw Karevi so Pollard can fix opposite number Cooper, but Karevi is ball watching, he hasn't even noticed Am, so Am slows down. He stops with momentum, meaning he bumps into Karevi instead of flying straight past him, momentarily creating a separation from Cooper, which allows Villy LaRue to use his phenomenal hands to leave the Wallabies outflanked. Nkosi runs out of room and cuts infield to prevent being pushed into touch, but this is where Am's unbelievable knack for noticing comes in. Let's just watch Reece Hodge playing fullback for Australia for a moment. As the box go wide, he comes into the main line with a cut down Nkosi's space, but he isn't even in a tackle, yet he has a split second of considering it. So he stands in on the wing as the guard, but his eyes are always on the ruck. Am is watching this the entire time. His eyes are always on Hodge. The centre slips onto the blind side, but whilst doing so, he has a little word with Faf de Klerk. He's calling for the kick, knowing Australia's only backfield, Nick White, is too far away and Hodge has his hips turned inwards. Am's already at full speed by the time he's turned around, and he can ground the ball uncontested. It's a tiny genius call exploiting a split second of space he was crucial in creating in the first place, by pulling Hodge up out of the backfield. But there's another note on this, right? I've only ever seen Faf de Klerk kick off his right foot twice. One was this try here, if he kicks off his preferred left foot, the nudge has been blocked. The other was a few months earlier against the British and Irish Lions and also called by Lukhanyo Am. South Africa wheel this maul, cutting off the entire Lions pack from the backs. So, knowing de Klerk has been lured onto the foot where he never kicks, the Lions are fronting up for a huge carry from Deolander here. The kick isn't a consideration. Instead, though, the call comes from 13 and de Klerk drops it onto his right foot. The only man who has spotted what's happening is Chris Harris, who turns his back to try and obstruct Am, but the box just glides around it. The kick is perfectly weighted, the ball right in front of Am, meaning he can beat Henshaw running diagonally to it. Am grounds it and seals the match. The test series is level. On both occasions, Am knew not only was the best option the kick, but that it had to come off the right foot and had to come off 9. It's a breed of instantaneous reactive rugby intelligence that can only grow when the player backs and believes in the team around him, not just himself. Am is possibly the most selfless player on the planet right now. Something underlined, highlighted, then screamed by the paper itself that is written on by this iconic touch from the last Rugby World Cup final. A moment I labelled at the time as possibly the most selfless act in rugby union history. I don't know if there's another player on the planet who, put in a position where with 90% likelihood you're going to score the try that wins the World Cup, would give the pass that guarantees the extra 10%. But Lukhanyo Am would. It's a mindset evident in every area of his game. He could hair it after this ball, for instance, and try to take the breakaway chance that might follow, but instead he slows, waits, and holds behind Henshaw, shepherding him, knowing that if he goes to the ball himself, he'll miss the chance to just smash his opponent into touch. Rugby for Lukhanyo Am has no individual glory. It's a team task with a clear objective that he's just calmly focused on accomplishing. Yet, things at test level happen so quickly, and Am seems to just see them in slow motion. Here, the ball spills out of a South African maul, and suddenly the Boks are on unexpected defence. The Alande fires up and sells himself, but Am knows he has time, so he can play it far calmer. He hangs back, probably wondering what to read on the plane home as he watches Farrell change his mind in real time. And then he forgets books and settles on just reading Chris Harris instead. Harris is trying to isolate LaRue, so Am just lets him, slowing down and allowing the offload, knowing the writing is on the wall for Daly once he catches it, and it ain't gonna be a breezy summer read. Or here, playing for the Sharks, Am has even more time on his hands and decides to go one better and make the website. Now, 6 seconds for any of us is the equivalent of about 2 hours for Lukhanyo Am, so knowing there's about 10 seconds between rucks, he probably has the equivalent of about an afternoon to any of us to knock up a beautiful, functional, perfect website. But thankfully, he also knows just where to go and make one. So he heads to Squarespace. He builds a blog to write posts about the scrum half picking the ball up here. Then he adds one page detailing each of the forward runners here, one page to dissect everything each of them could do. But whereas anyone else would figure Stain could hit any of these options, to Am, this is so telegraphed he decides to double down. Using Squarespace's mail list features, he fires off an email newsletter to every one of his teammates, so simply informing them all of what Stain's going to do. But working on human time, none of them have time to check their emails. So he sets up a members-only area to go and post the info on what Stain's going to do. But again, they don't see it, so fine, he just goes and makes the insert himself. He shoots in, makes a genius read before running it under the post. A clip he can then integrate onto his homepage as a video clip. And if you want to be just like Lukhanyo Am, you can head to the link in the description and visit Squarespace to get 10% off using the offer code SquidgeRugby. Though I would say probably best to do it at home and on your computer rather than playing pro rugby, but it's up to you. It's this anticipation that sets Am apart. Watching this try for South Africa against the Lions, the initial reaction of almost everyone is to go, bloody hell, Cheslin Colby's good. But when you watch it back, it becomes clearer and clearer this is an absolute masterclass by our boy Lukhanyo. As Elliot Daly clears, Am turns very briefly to assess the situation and instantly looks to Colby to point out Lewis Rees-Zammit. The lines have cleared in a hurry, so this chase is sparse. Just Harris and Zammit on this side of the pitch. Now, just for a burst of context, right? Chris Harris is probably the second best defensive centre in the planet to Am, and his ability to single-handedly shut down counterattacks is kind of legendary in the Northern Hemisphere. If you told a Lions fan, right, they could choose literally any player from across the 4 countries to be in the situation Harris finds himself here, they would probably pick Harris. And yet Am is one bound ahead of even his next closest rival. The moment Daly makes the kick, Am's turn to Colby and point out Rees-Zammit. He wants him to target the winger, but moments later he then turns to de Klerk and tells him to take the wing to get on the outside of Colby. Zammit is alone, but he's not an idiot. If Am's plan is to work, he needs a second option for him to consider, something to make him think about, and putting Faf as a passing option outside him grants that. However, Harris is playing this perfectly. He drifts in, shutting down the space and giving Colby only the tightest margins to play it. But just watch Am, right? Now, it's a very common trick in rugby for players chasing back to casually obstruct chasers to just kind of linger in their way and prevent them getting into position, opening space for counterattack. And, at first, Am sticks to his opposite number so tight he might as well change his name to Lukhanyo. But then he does this. He just drifts onto Harris's inside away from Colby, becoming no obstruction at all. This baffles Harris. He turns around to check where his opposite number is, assuming it's a trick. And that's all the invitation that Colby needs. He accelerates onto Harris's outside and Zammit drifts onto de Klerk. Am has simply got himself out of the way. If you plonk him here, the gap is too small for even living pencil sharpener Colby to squeeze through. But now, there's just enough gap between Harris and Zammit. And yet, Am's decision to fade out is a double whammy. Having pictured pretty much the situation right when Daly kicked it, he's able to work out and time his support line perfectly, popping up on the end just as Colby's tackled to run in a try he's silently masterminded. And it's not just tries he's working out in real time. Here, as the ball is moving down the line, Am glances across and spots Anthony Watson jogging into position. So, he stabs through this kick. He knows Hogg will beat any Springboks to it, but that's the idea. Hogg regathers under pressure, and Watson isn't yet in position to hit the pass. He's slightly in front of Hogg, and also too far away to clear out, meaning Hogg has to take it in with 3 South Africans bearing down on him and no other Lions around. Am makes the tackle and D'Alande Mapimpi win the penalty, allowing Handré Pollard a shot at goal. His decision making is instantaneous, picking up on the slightest hint in order to spring into action, with Prop Francis here playing 9. The pass is shoddy, so Am decides to hang back a moment. The pass has put Beard under pressure, so he compounds the issue by throwing another dodgy ball to McNichol, at which point Am explodes into life, blocking the pass to Davis and also making sure to nudge him in the process, removing Wales' only support player and allowing South Africa to disrupt the ball enormously, almost winning it back. It's a tiny swing that changes the momentum of a moment. Argentina here on a really good attack until Am makes the opposition and shoots up. Miotti is left with 2 options: get smashed or give a boring inside ball. The wide play is no longer on. This instantaneously ends Argentina's momentum and allows the Springboks to turn it over shortly afterwards. But even when Am Am isn't making split-second reads. He's just such a nuisance to play against. The Lions spent months, maybe even years, working on moves to work out the way South Africa defend. And this is a superb one. It's really well executed as well. It should do that. But Lukhanyo just dawdles through them. He never commits, just drifting through the Lions, meaning Hogg once again has no option to take it himself. The Lions move is good enough that Am has no idea what they're going to do. He can't read it as he usually might, but that doesn't stop him shutting it down anyway. Most centres would be decisive. They'd make a key call, right or wrong, and stick to it. But there's a confidence and assuredness that comes in Am being so willing to make the decision of no decision, just drifting and covering everyone like the most world-class under-10s defender you've ever seen. But that isn't to say he doesn't do decisive, very much the opposite. Here, he's about to fold around the ruck and cover the far side. At the last moment, he spots Anthony Watson entering the frame and flashes back. Typically, a defender would want to get on the outside space and trust the inside space, Khaleesi in this case, to take Watson. But with him running such a curved angle and the lingering Jack Conan so flat, it's unlikely any pass Watson can get away will be worth more than 5 metres, so Am shoots out of line here, allowing Watson to get on his outside deliberately. Every step Watson takes sideways is an extra half second for Khaleesi to reach the wing. Am eventually completes the tackle and shepherds the winger's body into the path of Khaleesi, who's unlucky not to win a turnover. It's perhaps the most interesting thing about Lukhanyo Am, because he doesn't ever really make mistakes, but not in the sense he gets everything right, he doesn't. But in the way, whenever he does make an error, he instantly turns it into a positive. Am makes a mess of his line here, but 6 seconds later he's adapted into the perfect position to chase his kick. Or here, he fires up, being pretty class himself, Barrett can react in time and take the gap it opens. Yet, unworried by a potential error, Am instantly reprioritises, blocking off the pass, trusting Malherbe to make the tackle, shuts the attack down. There's no desperation to amend for an individual mistake, just to make the best decision for the team. There's a moment in the recent two-sided Lionsdale documentary where his mother describes the unflappable sense of calm she feels whenever her son returns home, and that sheer peace is the absolute core of everything Am does so well. If players like Mornay Stain or Dan Bigger have ice in their veins, whatever's pumping through Lukhanyo Am is so cool it could end global warming. This infamous pass to Spew and Nkosi is another highlight reel moment, but if most players tried this, it would be all about ego. With Am, it's entirely deception, wrapping the ball in this arm so that Ioane commits, assuming there's no way he can ever get it away. Instead, Am just magics it to Nkosi, who can put Diolande in the corner. Because this is the contradiction at the heart of Lukhanyo Am. Am is a player so focused on doing the boring jobs calmly, he manages to produce some of the most thrilling shit you've ever seen in your life. With Quagga Smith here making a superb launch at the line, England understandably concentrate most of their resources around the ruck, expecting another drive. But instead, Yankees calls it out. Now, Lukhanyo Am is an incredibly trusting player, whether that's assuming de Klerk can put it on a sixpence off his wrong foot or thinking Makazole Mpimpi will one day high-five him if he keeps putting him in for enough tries, but on this occasion, he knows what has to be done can only be done by him. Am begins running what's known as an overs line, looking to get the outside of Malins, but this forces Stewart to turn in on him, and Am instantly squares his line, fixating on Stewart and taking him out of the game entirely before unleashing a quite unbelievable pass. Many international players would struggle to flick a simple ball under this kind of insane pressure, but Lukhanyo Am's sheer ocean of calm is so strong, it feels as though none of his core skills are affected by the pressure, able to fling it to Mpimpi perfectly for yet another occasion to see himself just get blanked, just get ignored. Because his catch pass is so unbelievable, it becomes a point of interest in itself. This is so simple. As the ball leaves the scrum, Am throws his hands up into a target. Rees-Zammit spots this and points it out to his teammates, coming up into the line expecting Am to do some fancy shit. But instead, it's a bluff. Rees-Zammit, now pulled up by this, Stain can kick it in behind and leave Daly under huge pressure. He gets the pass to Zammo, but the pressure shifts and you can only hit it out on the full before being smashed into touch. That's a 30-metre net gain just down to Lukhanyo Am's body language. That's how big a threat he is. There are very few things on a rugby field that Lukhanyo Am cannot do, from filtering in as an extra forward for the Springboks to throwing some of the greatest passes the game will ever see. Am is a player with a near-perfect skill set, but that's almost an irrelevance. The reason the word that comes to mind is class rather than classy is because of how he utilises it. We can divide Am into a category of players like any other great, but it's a brand new one rather than an existing archetype, and it's really, really exciting. He's a centre whose key skills are anticipation and patience, things you'd normally expect from the kind of 10 who we previously described as the kind of chess master. Yet instead of ordering his army around the field, Am plays a middle role. He rarely starts or finishes many of his ideas, instead acting as one of the greatest cogs the game has ever seen, allowing the bits we pay more attention to work. I could have spent an hour here just discussing how good his dummy lines are or how great he is on a kick chase, because the less sexy something is, the more likely Lukhanyo Am seems to be one of the greatest out there at it. And yet, as well as being this really boring dude, he's also a centre who can prompt excitement and commentary that sounds like this.
Lukhanyo!
But if we look at this try, right? If we really look, it kind of sums Am up perfectly. This isn't a showcase of flair, it's a pragmatic decision to keep the ball in the field of play under pressure while the defence is unsettled. Lukhanyo Am is a man who does the most thrilling shit you've ever seen in the most boring way possible, and a man who does the boring jobs with the thrill of perfection. He's a man who plays rugby in his own way, almost absorbing the game and embracing all aspects without needing to think. He's a man who we could describe with so many words, but at the end of the day, why should we when we can use just one? Lukhanyo Am is class. Thank you for watching that. I hope you enjoyed it. There's so much more I could have included that I didn't get to. So many more comprehensive notes on everything Am's done in just the last year. I'm mostly focused on just going over games he's played in the last year. There's so much. He's so good. I just want to do that to kind of warm up to the South Africa-Wales series. There's obviously plenty more, and I'll be covering whichever games I can fit in each week. I'm not going to commit to say I'm definitely going to cover this game or that game or that game. We'll see after each week, after each round. And we'll go from there. Yeah, thank you all for watching. The video on the Premiership final is finally up. It was a right nightmare, but huge thanks to Katie at LDS Sports for sorting that. That's all up now, and I'll see you all very soon for more rugby.
I don't like being an intense person, you know. I do the dishes, obviously, so yeah, it's quite interesting. I'm very simple when it comes to my meals. It's always meat and something extra, so I keep it that way.